I want to turn that milk chocolatey. Here's your look at the new Jada Toys General Mills Count Chocula action figure. Add your favorite General Mills cereal mascot to your collection with this Count Chocula action figure. The Count stands at 6 inches tall and is fully articulated, so you can display him with your other figures in an exciting action pose, or just have him enjoying a bowl of Count Chocula cereal. Before we get a closer look at the Count, how about we get this guy clocked in to see how tall he actually stands? To do that, I'm going to grab my ruler and put it right next to the figure. And looking at it, it looks like Count Chocula stands at around 6.5 inches, or about 16.5 centimeters tall. The figure gets a swappable head sculpt and a box of his own cereal, which we'll have a look at first. To Jada Toys' credit, I will say I'm impressed that they actually printed this onto the slab of plastic rather than using a label. Because you know labels down the road will eventually always peel off, and never stickers stay on very well. By printing it on like this, it's going to look just as good years from now as it does right now. Of course, they didn't print on anything on the sides of the box, nor on the top. But on the back, there's a cutout mask. Obviously, you can't really cut it out, but you can fool your friends and play monster. I think at one point the cereal boxes did have cutout masks. I mean, the likelihood of anyone really believing that you're Count Chocula while still wearing your hoodie and jeans, very slim to none. But the very idea that they would have included that on the back of the box, nice touch on their part. Now, this can't fit into his hand, although I found on this side of his body, it works better to hold the cereal box. If you look at his hands, I'm going to put them kind of together so you can see the difference between the two. See how this one has more of a C-clamp shape to it? It fits just perfectly, like a T, to actually hold the cereal box in his hand. This other hand, though, literally on the other hand, isn't as good or suitable for holding the cereal box, but I think it would have been a prime candidate to maybe include like a cereal bowl with pieces of Count Chocula inside, and even a large spoon would have been a nice touch. Maybe that's something that they could do for future releases, but in the meantime, at least you get yourself a cereal box that could be displayed with the figure. There is some weight to it. It's not super heavy, but I think if you're going to have the arm extended like this all the time on your shelf and him holding the cereal box, let's just get it back into his hands like that. I think you're going to be starting to add a little bit of extra weight and stress to the joints. I mean, the arms right now don't seem too bad, but if he's always going to be extending his arm out like this, holding the cereal box in hand, I think that long term is probably going to start making these elbows get awfully loose. I'm probably just going to display it next to the figure. The figure also comes included with a swappable head sculpt, which we'll have a look at right now. Now, this is good if you want just the regular default Count Chocula, which I'm actually kind of keen about. I like the look of this one. But if you want a more surprised Count Chocula, I love that head sculpt. There's also this option available as well. And this kind of looks more like he's looking down in the cereal bowl, whereas this one basically is just a regular neutral head sculpt. The hair seems the same with both, as well as the ears, maybe the nose as well. Definitely there's a big difference between the eyes. I guess maybe even like the mouth isn't that much different, even though this one's slightly more open. I just think it's fun the fact that they would have included a swappable head sculpt like this. Now, even though this is probably going to be the one I'm going to settle with, just to show you what it looks like on the figure's neck, I'm going to actually just hold onto the torso like this, and just very easily wiggle it off the ball joint. I have noticed that they've textured the ball joint. That may also help as well when it comes to removing the head sculpt. And also maybe when it comes to putting the head in place too, because it's got a little bit of friction to work against. Actually, you know what? Just before I put this head on here, I just want to talk a little bit about his cape. The cape is technically a separate piece. If you wanted to fit this around his neck, you could take it off completely if you wanted to. And it's a fully finished body all the way around. I do find like the cape's a little on the loose side. I mean, if you're just only putting it on the torso, as you can see, it's really going to flop around. I don't know if I would ever really consider taking the cape off myself, because that's really Count Chocula. I probably would be all more down to the idea of them actually gluing it. If they had put a tab, a little plug or something on the back that could have attached to his torso, or just literally glued it in place, just to ensure that the cape wouldn't, like if I'm holding it right now, the cape's not moving anywhere. If I let go of it, of course, it's going to be moving and floppy, a little bit of floppiness. Let's go ahead and put the other head sculpt in place. Just again, pop it onto that ball joint. And that's what Count Chocula looks like with the more surprised look on his face. One last time to bring in the other head sculpts so you can see the two. I like this one myself, but I really love the fact that they gave us this surprised look on his face too. It's also worth noting, I've got a little scratch there on my, I guess, the defaulted head sculpt, and a little blemish there on the side of his cheek. This one doesn't have it, although it's got a little speck there on the side of his teeth. Other than that, I mean, like, the paint's really good on both the head sculpts. And when we get into more of the articulation on the figure, he actually has quite a lot going for him as well. Looking at the rest of his body, basically keeping really to the color scheme of brown. The brown seems consistently across the board all the same color. And of course, the cape being the separate piece we already talked about before. Other than that, he has his tuxedo. Would that be still a tuxedo? I guess it would be. And that's all done in a nice chocolatey brown. I even like the looks of his sleeves too as well. Even though I wasn't a big fan of Count Chocula's cereal, I just loved the character. And the idea of taking universal monsters and turning them into cereal mascots was such a great idea. And the idea of now finally getting these as action figures, I think, is such a cool touch. The legs are a little on the spindly side, but at least they are articulated, which we'll get more about in a second. And down below, he does have his shoes with spats on there as well. There is peg holes on the undersides of these figures' feet, but yet they don't come included with display stands. I don't have necessarily an issue with really Count Chocula's standing. Even though he's got spindly looking legs, the figure has no difficulty standing whatsoever. Looking at the articulation now on Count Chocula, his head is on a ball joint, so of course you can rotate the head all the way around. In order to get it cleared around the collar of his cape, well, that's a whole lot of C's, you sort of have to do the head on an angle. It does look up, and it looks down, quite a lot actually, and you can also rock it back and forth this way too. So if you even wanted to have even more of a surprised look on the Count's face, just angle his head just slightly off to the side. As for his arms hinge out. Just standard hinges on these arms, by the way. And you can bring them out at about a 90 degrees, give or take. You can take the arms also and rotate them all the way around. Now, the thing about rotating them all the way around is that you're going to have to deal with that collar of the cape again, and even the side of the cape too. But the arms do rotate all the way around. Just a little on the tight side. There we go. Just make sure, of course, when you are rotating the arms, see the little hinge joint right there, you want to make sure that's in the armpit area. That will allow the arm to bend down. If you have it going the wrong way and you try to bend it, it may run the risk of breaking off that joint. Then for the arms, basically the same idea, the forearm area. You have to bend in the elbow. You move that back and forth this way, and you can also rotate the arm this way as well. Slight looseness, but it's not too bad so far. The hands rotate all the way around, and you can also hinge those back and forth. He does have an upper torso ball joint. It's kind of a little harder to get in there, but he does have an upper torso ball joint. Legs split out. They go forward and back. About 3/4 up the way up the thigh. There's a swivel cut there, so you can rotate the leg all the way around. Again, a little on the loose side. Not going to cause issues, at least with the figure standing. He has a double hinge on the knee. And then when it comes to his feet, they move back and forth this way. And there's also an ankle pivot as well. So he really does have quite a lot of articulation going for him. The thing again about it, though, is I probably will not display Count Chocula with the cereal box in his hand. I mean, he has the ability to do it, but I just don't think that... I think long term, it's going to cause stress to the knees, more importantly, probably stress to the elbows as well, that instead I'll probably just take the cereal box and display it next to the figure. Certainly this would have been a case where I would have loved to have been able to do the reviews of these during October, but the availability of them online, unfortunately, wasn't the case. Finally, when they eventually got ordered, my pre-order got fulfilled. They ended up shipping near later to the end of November. So even though it's not technically something that we could have looked at during Halloween, it was certainly still figures that I wanted to have a look at here on this channel. Now that I think about it, I think that other hand was never really designed to hold the side of the cereal box, but rather instead hold the bottom of it. So not only does it look like Count Chocula is presenting the cereal to the kids sitting at the kitchen room table, but it also takes some of that much needed weight off the one arm. So the one arm isn't just going to have to solely hold the cereal box on its own. Because I think even though it worked in this review, long term that would cause problems and develop looseness in the one elbow. At least it now looks like he can hold the weight of the box together, two hands together, instead of just the one. Now, I picked up both this one and Frankenberry. It's the only two cereal mascots that Jada Toys have released so far. And picking these up online, they were about $25 a piece. I couldn't believe that. $25 for the fact that we get two swappable head sculpts, not to mention a box of cereal that he can hold in his hand. Not to mention as well that on the back of the cereal box, there's a mask that you can cut out and fool your friends. You're really not going to fool anybody. Even if your friends pretend like they're scared, they know you wore that outfit coming into the kitchen. You left the kitchen. You came back in looking like Count Chocula. You're wearing the same outfit. Your kids, your friends aren't that dumb. But though, Jada Toys again have only released so far Count Chocula and Frankenberry. You may notice at the bottom of the box, there's all the rest of the cereal mascots, Boo Berry, Fruit Brute, and Fruity Yummy Mummy. I hope we get those other 3 as well so that we can get the 5 cereal mascots. Let's hope that Jada Toys continues to release these. I'm a big fan of the cereal mascots myself, not being a big fan of Count Chocula personally, but the very idea that we are getting ourselves finally cereal mascot figures. Yes, yes, yes. For your video question for today, what's your favorite General Mills Universal Monsters cereal? I think mine growing up was Boo Berry, but then I realized as I got a little more mature with my taste, it was Frankenberry. Frankenberry, easily. I never had a chance to try Fruity Yummy Mummy. I think at one point I did try Fruit Brute, but what is your favorite cereal from General Mills when it comes to at least the monster cereals? And if you guys are enjoying the content that you're seeing here on this channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, turn the bell notification on, and keep your peepers peeled, because even though we have wrapped up things with Count Chocula, the review of Frankenberry will be right around the corner. So stay tuned for that. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.